Welcome to a new lesson from the lead generation course. This is Jason, a marketing consultant. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to work towards your definition of a good lead, create organizational alignment for lead acquisition, map sales and buying stages for lead generation success, understand when a lead is ready to buy. What is a lead, anyway? And more importantly, what is a good lead? In searching for the perfect definition of a lead, I came across a blog post on the Marketo website that addressed this discussion exactly. Here is what the leading industry thought leaders had to say on the subject.
John Miller, the co-founder of and VP of Marketing for Marketo, says, in Marketo's revenue cycle, a lead is a qualified prospect that is starting to exhibit buying behavior. Craig Rosenberg, sales and marketing expert and founder of the awesome blog The Funnelaholic, states, there are two elements to a lead, demographic and psychographic. When it comes to the psychographic element, your definition of a lead will depend on your company, where you're selling, and who you're selling to. A pretty solid start, but ultimately your definition of a good lead is very particular to your own criteria. You need to ask yourself who historically has been buying your product or service.
Defining your leads. Not all leads are created equal. And it is critical before you embark on your lead generation journey to determine what your definition of a good lead is. And it's not just your definition that matters. What is your sales department's definition of a good lead? After all, salespeople are the ones who are following up and closing deals. So if marketing thinks a good lead is one thing and sales vehemently disagree, you have a problem. Organizational alignment and a clear, spelled-out definition of a lead make for a good lead generation program. The first step to coming up with an agreed-upon lead definition is having a meeting with all stakeholders, and then opening the discussion up to both your sales and marketing teams. Create a list. Diagram your lead flow on a whiteboard, and then come up with the one lead definition to rule them all. Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following. As a comment to this video, I learned that. I relearned that. I discovered that. I plan to. Assessing demographic fit. First, look at some basic demographics. Who is your buyer? Use demographic information, ideally from your customer relationship management program or marketing automation software, to begin creating a profile of the individual or group who most often purchases your product or service. Demographics become more important for business-to-consumer companies as the demographic attributes of individuals work fairly well to determine how to segment your marketing campaigns. Demographics are also extremely useful for business-to-business companies and can be used quite effectively to develop your lead generation strategy. Typical demographic attributes can consist of gender, title, age, education, years of experience, income, specialties. You can add many more demographic attributes to this list, depending on what is important to your marketing efforts. The more detailed your demographic list is, the closer you can get to really defining what a good lead means to your company. Demographic profiling is an attempt to generalize and create a profile of your target buyers and leads. Often, your leads will be very different from your developed profiles. Remember to always reassess your demographic lead profile frequently as your business needs and priorities change. Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following. As a comment to this video, I learned that. I relearned that. I discovered that. I plan to. Applying firmographic profiles. Just as demographics apply to people, firmographics help you narrow down what sort of organizations buy your product or service.
This is highly important, particularly to a B2B organization.
Firmographics look at information such as location, company size, and industry. Most companies sell products or services within particular verticals, like high-tech, healthcare, financial services, and so on, to certain sized companies. For instance, an enterprise application firm whose software costs upwards of $500,000 per year would not want to bother with leads from a company that could only afford to spend about $15,000 per year. This is where firmographics becomes very important to your lead generation segmentation. When looking at firmographics, you often measure company size, company location, revenue, number of divisions, industry, number of products or services sold, geographic markets served, rankings, stock indexes, for example, Fortune 500, Inc. 500, and so on. Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following. As a comment to this video: I learned that. I relearned that. I discovered that. I plan to. Qualifying leads with BANT. BANT stands for budget, authority, need, and time, and is a more advanced lead qualification practice than demographics and firmographics.
BANT takes into consideration the ability to secure facts about the prospect before moving forward, and therefore these are questions often asked by the sales representative to further qualify the lead.
Although you can ask some of these questions up front on a website form, my philosophy is that your forms should always be short and leave the tough questions to your sales teams. Research shows that the longer the form, the more drop-off you have. So let's dig into the specifics and further define BANT. Budget. The budget is a big one. Make sure the lead can afford your product or service. This is often one of the first questions that your sales representative asks in order to determine whether the lead is good or not. Both B2B and B2C companies care about the answer to the budget question. How much do you have budgeted for this project or item? Your lead will likely not give you a specific answer, so expect a range, and be ready to ask some other questions, like what she's currently using today, to indirectly deduce a conclusion. And also remember that budgets are flexible and can change. However, don't spend time trying to sell a $3,500 handbag to someone who only really has the money to spend $350. Authority. After you have determined that a lead has the dough to spend on your product or service, find out whether he has the authority to make the decision. Can he sign that dotted line? If so, you are truly in luck. But most likely, the first contact you speak to will be a gatekeeper of sorts, or an influencer, as I like to call them. Your first contact, even if she is not the decision maker, is most likely crucial to the decision-making process. She has either been tasked to find a solution or is the one experiencing the pain that your product can rectify. If you determine that the lead is an influencer, your sales team needs to dig deep to find out who the decision maker is, because that is someone you need on your lead list. Need. Your lead has to need your product or service. Simple as that. It never works out if the lead wants your product or service but doesn't really need it. But remember, your leads may not know that they have a problem, so it's up to your sales team to show it to them. If your lead fits all of your other criteria, a good sales executive can help her find that pain or future pain and solve it with your product or service, of course. Time. What is your lead's purchasing time frame? It needs to map pretty closely to your delivery process so that you are aligned with what your lead needs. For instance, say you run an office furniture supply store and you get a call from a company 1,000 miles away that needs an order for 100 chairs that you have currently back-ordered. The customer wants them delivered in 3 days. You obviously can't get the chairs shipped on time. Therefore, the time frame in which your prospect needs your product does not align with your capabilities. Of course, you want to try and sell her another chair that you do have in stock, but be wary when expectations and reality don't line up. You want to be careful to set realistic expectations. Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following. As a comment to this video: I learned that. I relearned that. I discovered that. I plan to. Defining your sales funnel. After you have a good idea of who your best leads are, the next step to defining your lead generation process is to define your sales funnel. Knowing where a prospect is in his buying journey so that you can align it directly to your marketing and sales processes. Mapping your lead generation efforts to your funnel is extremely important as it dictates your campaigns, messaging, and expected metrics. Many companies typically define the sales process as a funnel. By tailoring programs and messages to this process, you can move leads down the funnel starting from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. Understanding your funnel stages. Every company has a different funnel depending on its sales processes. However, for the sake of simplicity, I talk about a funnel that I'm familiar with, Marketo's.
Marketo defines the sales and marketing process in stages: awareness and friend. This stage covers all leads who might know who Marketo is but that are not known in their database. Marketo understands that a lead might be visiting their website or downloading an ebook, but has not formally identified himself.
These leads are curious about who Marketo is. They are often brought in through inbound marketing efforts such as social media and content. Name. This is when an individual has officially entered Marketo's database. To Marketo, a name is just a name. It is not yet a lead at all. Why?
Because names have not yet engaged with the company.
Remember, just because someone gets scanned at your trade show booth doesn't mean she wants to communicate with your company in a meaningful way. Therefore, she is not yet considered a lead.
Engaged. Marketo doesn't move names to the next stage in the funnel until they have had some sort of meaningful conversation with the client. An engaged individual knows he is in the database, he has maybe attended a webinar or downloaded an ebook, and he expects Marketo to email and communicate with him. Target. Once an individual has engaged with Marketo in some way, Marketo uses lead scoring to determine whether that person is a qualified buyer.
That means she is a fit for their ideal demographic and behavioral criteria.
Lead. Finally, a target becomes a lead. Not until this moment does marketing pass a lead to sales.
To become a lead, a person has to show sufficient interest in Marketo.
Maybe she has downloaded a few white papers, attended a few events, and responded to a direct mail campaign.
This person has a high lead score. Recycled. Sometimes a prospect won't actually become a lead yet. She may have downloaded a few ebooks, but when she's called by sales, she is not ready to buy.
Instead of leaving that potential future lead in a black hole to dry out and die, you want to make sure she is recycled into your lead nurturing database.
That way, you can continue sending your prospect relevant and educational materials in hopes that one day soon she will indeed become a viable lead.
Sales lead. If the lead is truly qualified and he has had a good conversation with the inside sales team, he is passed on to an account executive. The account executive also speaks directly with the lead and has 7 days to either turn the lead into a true sales lead, or send him back to marketing for lead nurturing, where marketing adds that lead into a campaign to re-engage him over time.
Opportunity. From there, a lead becomes an opportunity when sales have qualified the lead and it is an active selling opportunity. To give you some insight, at Marketo, about a quarter of leads generated become opportunities.
Customer. Woot. You now have a full-blown customer and your lead has converted to a sale. Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following. As a comment to this video, I learned that.
I relearned that. I discovered that. I plan to. Always remember that every company's sales funnel is going to be different, so take some time to speak with your internal sales and marketing teams to come up with your own definitions, or feel free to use Marketo's as a model. After you have mapped out your sales funnel and have a good idea of what happens to leads when they come into your system, spend time mapping your lead generation efforts to buying stages. You can define a buying stage by how close a lead is to making a buying decision, and it's critical to create lead generation programs that resonate with where buyers are in their purchasing decisions. Most companies typically define their buyer stages as early, mid, and late or top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Early stage buyers. Early stage buyers often map to the awareness or friend, name, engaged, and target stages in your sales funnel. Early stage buyers have either never heard about your company or have very little brand awareness. The goal of early-stage content assets and lead generation campaigns is to bring leads into your funnel and get them interested enough in what you are all about, so they want to stick around, consume more content through your lead nurture channels, and ultimately become customers. The important thing to note at this stage when it comes to your lead generation campaigns is that you want to make sure you are tailoring your messaging for early-stage buyers. Someone who just learned about your company probably doesn't want to watch a customer testimonial. Instead, he is more interested in learning who you are and consuming thought leadership in the form of best practices. Typically during this stage, Buyers are either looking for general industry best practices and haven't realized they have a problem yet, or they realize they have a problem and are just starting their research. Your campaign messaging and offers must align with what a buyer is looking for at this stage. The idea is that through proper targeting and appropriate messaging, you can bring early-stage buyers into your funnel and help them move through their educational journey to become mid-stage buyers. Mid-stage buyers. A buyer becomes mid-stage after she has shown some interest in your business's core competencies. That lead has displayed some sort of buying behavior and is potentially a true sales lead. A mid-stage buyer should map to the lead and sales lead stage of your sales funnel. Whereas your early-stage offers and messaging often align to industry best practices and actionable tips, and have a focus on creating a relationship and trust with your buyer, your mid-stage offers are meant to direct your lead's focus towards your product. If a lead sticks around, subscribes to your blog, downloads a variety of ebooks, and even attends a webinar, she is likely in the middle stages of your funnel.
She has shown a real interest in your company and is ready to receive more targeted messaging and offers that tie in nicely with what your company can offer. For example, consider a company that sells budgeting software to the enterprise. Maybe your early stage offers to discuss budgeting best practices, common budgeting pitfalls, how to optimize your budget, and so on.
Then after a lead has shown interest, she is ready to receive offers that talk specifically about budgeting software. Notice how a buyer is moving from broad to specific interest in your product or service. Late-stage buyers.
Late-stage buyers are generally in the opportunity category and are getting pretty hyped up on your company's goods. They have successfully made it through your early-stage offers, have gone through the mid-stage gauntlet, and are now downloading very product-centric information such as pricing sheets, customer testimonial videos, and data sheets.
Your early and mid-stage offers have set the stage, and your leads now have a good understanding of how your product or service can cure their pain.
Late stage is a good time to be engaged with a salesperson, as late-stage buyers are clear hand raisers and have shown solid interest in your company.
Summarize your understanding of this section by completing the following, as a comment to this video. I learned that. I relearned that. I discovered that.
I plan to. Let's summarize. Now and by end of this lesson, you should be able to work towards your definition of a good lead.
Create organizational alignment for lead acquisition. Map sales and buying stages for lead generation success. Understand when a lead is ready to buy.